Today's episode features 3 terrifying stories that are as horrifying as they are stomach-churning. If you're faint of heart or have a weak stomach, we strongly suggest you skip this installment. For those daring enough to stay, brace yourselves. Our first story begins now. Hi, my name is Tom. I used to live in an old, creaky apartment building on the edge of town. It was a quiet place, perfect for someone like me who valued peace and solitude. But everything changed when a new tenant moved into the apartment above mine. It all began with the music. Loud, blaring heavy metal that shook my ceiling and rattled my windows. It played day and night without pause. At first, I thought it was just a party or a phase, but it never stopped. The relentless noise seeped into my bones, keeping me awake at all hours. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just music. But then there were the other sounds. Heavy boots stomping across the floor, disturbing creaks and loud thumps. Sometimes there were noises that sounded like people fighting or having very loud sex. It felt like my sanity was slipping away. I confronted the landlord, but he dismissed my complaints, calling me a curmudgeon. I tried talking to the tenant, but he laughed in my face. His girlfriend joined in, mocking me with her shrill laughter. The disrespect and constant noise drove me to the edge. One particularly bad night, after hours of pacing my small living room, I noticed something strange. The shadows on my walls seemed to move with a life of their own, twisting and writhing like dark tendrils. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized the noise wasn't just in my head. It was consuming me, driving me to the brink of insanity. Desperate for help, I reached out to a friend who was a doctor. She suggested it might be stress or a lack of sleep. She prescribed some medication, hoping it would help me find some peace. But the pills only made things worse. My dreams became vivid nightmares, filled with the distorted faces of the couple upstairs. Their laughter echoed through my mind, taunting me even in sleep. One night, after another sleepless night, I decided I had enough. I grabbed the biggest, sharpest knife I had and marched upstairs. I didn't plan to use it. I just wanted to scare them into stopping the noise. I pounded on the door, shouting for them to open up. When the door finally swung open, the guy standing there had a sneer on his face. His eyes were cold and mocking. That look pushed me over the edge. I slashed at him with the knife, feeling the blade connect with flesh. Blood sprayed everywhere, but he didn't scream. He just looked at me with those same cold eyes until he fell. His girlfriend tried to run, but I was too fast. I grabbed her and slashed at her too. I didn't want to kill her, I just wanted to silence the noise. But once I started, I couldn't stop. My anger took over, and I slashed until she was silent. As the adrenaline faded, I stumbled back to my apartment, shaking and covered in blood. I called 911, my mind still reeling from what I had done. The operator's voice was calm, but I could barely understand her. All I knew was that the noise had finally stopped. When the police arrived, they found a scene of horror. The young couple lay in a pool of blood, their bodies mangled beyond recognition. The music was still playing, an eerie soundtrack to the nightmare I had created. They took me away, and I ended up in prison. The weight of my actions crushed me every day. I couldn't escape the memories or the guilt. One night, unable to bear it any longer, I took my own life. Now I haunt the halls of that old apartment building, forever tormented by the noise above. If you ever hear loud music and strange noises in the middle of the night, beware. It might just be me, reliving my nightmare over and over again. As a ghost, I wander the building, watching new tenants move in and out, unaware of the horror that once took place. The music still plays sometimes, a haunting reminder of my actions. The shadows still twist and writhe, feeding off the fear and despair that lingers in the walls. I've tried to move on, to find peace, but the noise keeps me tethered to this place. I watch helplessly as other tenants begin to experience the same torment I did. They hear the footsteps, the laughter, the relentless music. Some try to ignore it, others confront it, but none can escape it. One night, a young woman moved into my old apartment. She was kind and quiet, always smiling and saying hello. I wanted to warn her, to tell her to leave, but I couldn't. The noise started almost immediately, and I watched as her cheerful demeanor slowly faded. The shadows closed in around her, just as they had with me. In a desperate attempt to escape, she called a paranormal investigator. He arrived with cameras and equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the haunting. As he set up, I could feel the building's energy shift. The noise grew louder, the shadows darker. The investigator's face paled as he reviewed his footage, seeing the twisted, ghostly forms that haunted the halls. In a final act of desperation, the young woman performed a cleansing ritual, hoping to rid the building of its dark energy. As she chanted and burned sage, I felt a strange pull, as if I were being torn from the fabric of the building itself. The noise stopped, the shadows receded, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. But as I faded from the building, I knew it was only temporary. The noise, the darkness, it would return. And when it did, I would be there, trapped in the endless cycle of torment and despair. If you ever hear loud music and strange noises in the middle of the night, beware. It might just be me, reliving my nightmare over and over again. And no matter how hard you try, you can never escape the noise above. Hi, my name is Jake. 6 months after breaking up with Lisa, my life turned into a nightmare. She was the kind of ex who wouldn't let go. It started with obsessive texts and calls, then escalated to leaving dead animals on my car. The police dismissed my concerns, saying she was harmless. But I knew better. One chilly evening, I was at home with my little sister, Emily, and my new girlfriend, Sarah. We were watching a movie when I noticed Lisa's beat-up truck parked outside. My heart raced as I realized she was there, waiting. I called 911, my voice trembling as I explained the situation. They told me to stay inside and lock the doors, but I knew Lisa wouldn't wait. As I peered through the window, I saw her get out of the truck. She was holding an axe, her eyes wild with madness. I told Emily and Sarah to hide in the bedroom while I tried to reinforce the door. The pounding started soon after. Lisa was trying to break in, her shouts echoing through the hallway. The police said they were on their way, but I feared they wouldn't make it in time. The bedroom door began to splinter, and I could hear Emily sobbing while Sarah tried to comfort her. Just as the door was about to give way, the sirens blared outside. Lisa paused, her face twisted with rage, and then ran back to her truck. The police burst in and tackled her to the ground. It took 3 officers to subdue her. In her truck, they found a chilling array of weapons: ropes, duct tape, and a shovel. At her apartment, they discovered a collection of knives, homemade explosives, and enough firearms to outfit a small army. She had no permits for any of it. Lisa was taken away, but the terror of that night stayed with us. Emily had nightmares for weeks, and Sarah couldn't sleep without the lights on. I moved us to a new place, hoping to leave the past behind, but the fear followed me. Every time I heard a noise outside, my heart would race, thinking Lisa had found us again. One night, I received a letter in the mail with no return address. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a photo of me with Emily and Sarah taken from a distance. On the back, written in red ink, were the words, "I'm always watching." Panic surged through me. I contacted the police, but they couldn't trace the letter. They advised me to be cautious and suggested installing security cameras. We did, but the sense of safety never returned. Months passed, and the fear began to fade, but it never completely left. I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, double-checking the locks and jumping at every unexpected sound. Sarah tried to reassure me, but the scars ran deep. One evening, as I was driving home from work, I noticed a familiar truck following me. My heart pounded as I took a series of turns, trying to shake it off. It followed me every step of the way. I sped up, racing home. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the truck was gone. But the fear had returned with a vengeance. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the shadows, waiting for Lisa to make her move. Hours passed, and just as I was about to drift off, I heard a faint tapping on the window. I froze, my blood running cold. The tapping continued, slow and deliberate. I grabbed a baseball bat and crept toward the window. My heart pounded in my ears as I pulled back the curtain. There, on the other side of the glass, was Lisa's face, twisted into a manic grin. She mouthed the words, "Miss me?" before disappearing into the night. The police arrived quickly, but Lisa was gone. They found footprints around the house and a crude drawing of a broken heart etched into the dirt. It was a message. She wasn't done with me. In the weeks that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow seemed to hide her, every sound a sign of her return. I became paranoid, withdrawing from friends and family, fearing for their safety. Sarah tried to help, but the strain was too much. We eventually parted ways, unable to cope with the constant fear. Years have passed, but the terror never fully left. Lisa was eventually caught and committed to a psychiatric facility, but I still feel her presence. Every now and then, I receive a letter, a photo, a small reminder that she's still out there, watching, waiting. If you ever find yourself in a similar situation, don't ignore the signs. Trust your instincts, seek help, and never underestimate the length someone might go to when they can't let go. Because sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. Hi, my name is Alex. I used to live in a rural home on the edge of a dense forest. It was a peaceful place, perfect for getting away from the chaos of the city. But that peace was shattered one night when something inhuman came to my property. It started with a screech in the night, waking me and my girlfriend Jane. Our Great Dane, Hulk, was barking like mad, something he never did. I grabbed my hunting rifle and went outside to check. I expected to find a raccoon or maybe a coyote, but what I saw was beyond anything I could have imagined. In the moonlight, I saw a dark silhouette, taller than any human, with elongated limbs and a grotesque, twisted neck. It was hunched over, moving in a way that no animal should. As soon as I stepped outside, it disappeared into the woods with a bone-chilling screech. My heart pounded in my chest, but I convinced myself it was just a trick of the light, a figment of my imagination. The next night, it returned. This time, its screech was louder, more menacing. Hulk was at the back door, barking furiously, his teeth bared. Jane was terrified, and I couldn't blame her. I went outside again, but this time I was more cautious. I saw the creature's glowing eyes reflecting in the darkness, watching me. It made my skin crawl. I called 911, trying to explain what I was seeing. The operator's voice was skeptical, but she said she'd send someone to check it out. By the time the police arrived, the creature was gone, leaving only large, strange footprints in the mud. The officers took a report but looked at me like I was crazy. Over the next few days, things escalated. I found mutilated animal corpses near the edge of the woods. Strange symbols were carved into the trees around my property, and a foul smell of sulfur and decay lingered in the air. My neighbors started talking about seeing the creature too, describing it in the same horrifying detail. One night, I heard Hulk growling low and deep, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. I looked out the window and saw the creature standing by the fence, staring into the woods. It was as if it was waiting for something. I called 911 again, my voice shaking. The operator tried to keep me calm, but I could barely hold it together. The creature turned and looked directly at me. It smiled, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. It had no eyes, just dark, empty sockets. I backed away from the window, my heart racing. I grabbed Jane and Hulk, and we barricaded ourselves in the bedroom. The police arrived quickly this time, their sirens blaring. The creature fled into the woods, but not before they caught a glimpse of it. The officers were visibly shaken, and they took my report more seriously. They advised us to leave the area while they conducted an investigation. Jane and I packed our bags and went to stay with friends. Hulk was restless, pacing back and forth, unable to settle. I kept checking the news, hoping for updates, but there was nothing. The police searched the woods and found more mutilated animals, strange symbols, and the skeletal remains of a human male. They couldn't identify him. After a week, we returned home, hoping the nightmare was over. But the terror followed us. One night, I heard scratching at the door and found a note with crude, childlike drawings of the creature and a message that read, "I'll be back." The fear consumed me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Jane and I grew distant, the stress taking its toll. One night, I woke to find her standing at the window, staring out into the darkness. She turned to me, her eyes wide with terror, and whispered, "It's here." I grabbed my rifle and crept toward the door. Hulk was growling, his hackles raised. I flung the door open, and there it was, standing in the yard, smiling that twisted, horrific smile. I fired at it, but it vanished into the night, leaving only the echoes of its screech. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I installed security cameras, but they always seemed to glitch when the creature appeared. Jane couldn't handle it anymore. She left, unable to live with the constant fear. I was alone, but the creature didn't care. It was after me. One night, the police found my home ransacked, blood everywhere. Jane had come back to check on me, but she found only a scene of horror. My body was discovered stuffed inside a hollowed-out log in the woods. My blood drained and my organs removed. The creature left a final message carved into the log. "See you soon. If you ever hear strange noises in the night or see shadows moving where they shouldn't, be warned. There are things out there lurking in the darkness, waiting to prey on the unsuspecting. And sometimes, the past refuses to stay buried."